There was two types of kids in the 80s. Those that every kid wanted to go to their house to hang out, or you were the kid that wanted to go to someone else's house to hang out. And I'll let you know which one you were. Welcome back to the Junkman, everybody. It's me, the Junkman, coming back at you with another video. And today I'm going to tell you if you were the cool kid in the neighborhood that all the kids wanted to hang out with. Because, let's face it, growing up, especially in the 80s, there were two types. Everybody wanted to go to this one guy's house because it was so cool to hang out there, or they all came to your house. Maybe you were that cool kid. And I got 10 items to show maybe you were on that cool list, or you were on that list where you wanted to go to someone else's house and hang out. Let's start with one when we were really little. This is when we were really little, almost preschool age, maybe 4 to 7, I don't know. But this was the FisherPrice Garage. A lot of kids had this thing, but if you didn't have it, you were going to the house that had it. If a kid up the road had it, I don't care if you hated him or not, you were going to play with the FisherPrice Garage. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. Had a working elevator, and my rule is any toy with a working elevator is gonna be cool. So that's awesome. So let's look at number 9. And if you're a G.I. Joe fan, even if you wasn't a G.I. Joe fan, you wanted to play with the U.S. flag. This thing was massive, huge, cost a lot of money, and most kids didn't have this thing. So if you wanted to play with it and you didn't have it, you would find the kid in the neighborhood to hang out with. He would become your best friend that summer so you could play with the U.S. flag. Sadly, I never had it, never got into G.I. Joe, but I didn't even know anyone that had it either. Either the kids that I knew that played G.I. Joe, none of them had this thing. This thing was huge. In fact, I don't even remember knowing about it back then. If I did, I would have been going to every door in my neighborhood asking if they had one so I could play with it. I'll be happy just watching the kid play with this thing. It looks awesome. Okay, number 8 is one I had. A lot of you probably had this one also. When it came to playsets, it was awesome. Kenner Star Wars Death Star playset. Now, luckily, or sadly, or however you want to look at it, now this thing was only released in the Star Wars logo. It didn't cross over to Empire or Jedi like some of the other toys did. So if you didn't get it before the stores ran out by 1980, you wasn't going to get it. So a lot of kids that fell more in love with Star Wars in the 80s because they were a little young when the first movie came out, they wasn't going to have the Death Star. But if you had it, they were coming to your house to play with it. You had all kinds of friends that you would never ever have if it wasn't for your Star Wars Kenner Death Star playset. And it has an elevator on it. So my rule. It's cool right there. This was an awesome playset. And again, any kid in the neighborhood had extra friends because of it. Now, I think we're at number 6. And I can't read because we're at number 7. The Star Wars Tower Treehouse Swings. I don't know what you officially call this thing, but you set up in the backyard. It looked like an outpost base for an Imperial officer that was on indoor. It was awesome. It was dangerous. That's what's so cool about it. This thing looked like it was going to fall over if the wind just blew a little bit. Or if little Jimmy was going too fast on this speeder bike swing. That's right. At the bottom of this was a swing. You could sit on it like a speeder bike. And there was no way this thing didn't tip when somebody was using it. I know your dad cemented it in, but that never worked. Just like the swing set playset in the backyard. You get on that swing, one side would pop up. This thing looked so dangerous. Dang, if you had a friend in your neighborhood that had this in their backyard, you were going there every day after school. This thing was awesome. Sadly, this thing came out when I was a little past my prime where I would have played in it. Hell, I would have gotten this thing in my 20s. I would still get this thing and play with it today. But it was past my prime, so I didn't get the benefits and enjoy this one. Didn't know anyone that had it. Number 6. The Atari 2600. Now, before you say, come on, everybody had the Atari 2600, we're going to talk about the first release, like the first year or two, when this thing was new and every kid wanted it. This was on every kid's Christmas list back in the late 70s when this thing first came out. You could play video games at your house. You couldn't believe it. Sure, you had a Pong system, but that was one game. Boop, 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 and it got boring within 10 minutes. But Atari had cartridges. You could play millions of games, or probably just dozens of games, but still, you had to have this. And you know what? It was expensive. When the Atari 2600 first came out, it cost $190 retail. And you think, well, that's not that bad. But in today's dollar, that's $850. Can you imagine playing $850 for a video game system? So a lot of people didn't have this. The few kids that did, you probably had to wait to Christmas to get it. But if you're one of those spoiled kids and you got it in summertime, you were the envy of the neighborhood. You had teenagers coming in your house to hang out with you. Yeah, if you were like 13, you had 16 and 17-year-olds coming over to play Atari. And that made you awesome. You'd be like, look, the bigger kids even love to hang out with me. Hell, even some of your dad's friends would come over on the weekend and want to play some Combat or Adventure. God, I loved Adventure. But if you had Atari, you were the king of the neighborhood. No doubt about it. This was it. No one could compete with that. Your Pong system wasn't going to get anybody coming over. And let's talk about when you're a little older. Now, this ain't really a toy related, but if you had satellite TV and you were in your teens, let's say 14 to 18, you had satellite TV. I'm talking about the good days of satellite TV when you had that big satellite dish in your backyard. You picked up all these kinds of channels, and the best point was you had porn. You had porn. So every guy in your class, everybody wanted to come over if your parents went home to watch some porn. Now, it always bothered me when two guys wanted to watch porn together. They were just too uncomfortable for me. But it was better than watching that scramble porn. Kids today don't know scramble porn. It was better than watching scramble porn on Cinemax because you didn't pay for it. But if you're lucky and you got Cinemax, you just got that soft core stupid porn. This was real. You couldn't believe it. It blew your mind. It was awesome. If you had satellite TV, again, the big old dish satellite television. And let's talk about another thing that made you absolutely cool that's not toy related. It was house related. If you had a house with a basement and you got to hang out in it, that's where all the kids wanted to go. But why? Parents wouldn't be seen. Sure, you could hang out in the kid's bedroom, you went to his house, but you was always close to the living room. You couldn't get too loud. You worried what you talking, somebody passed by or might say something. But if you could hang out in the basement, it was like having your own house. It was like having a cool fort in the woods, but it was better. It was awesome, especially if you had a TV, a sofa down there, if you had a little refrigerator. And it was a great place when you got a little in your teens to have a girl come over, or maybe in somebody else's case, a man or boy come over. I don't think you want a man to come over, you're a kid. That's just too creepy right there. But hanging out in the basement, that was the place to be. Anyone that had a basement had a group of friends because you wanted to be in that basement. You didn't want to be hanging out 2 doors down from your mom and dad making love. You just didn't want to do it. Just didn't want to do it. Okay, number 3. Hot Wheel Playsets. These were awesome. These were playsets for your Hot Wheel cars. Most of us just, if we had anything close to a playset, it was those orange tracks we could set up. That was about it. But if you had one of the playsets, there were a couple of different ones. They were the USA playset, the City playset. Service Center was one I really wanted. The Service Center. Any of those, if you had those to go with your Hot Wheel cars, you were having friends over. Your friends would get their Hot Wheels, put them in the little carrying case and come up. And everybody would want to come over and play with this Service Center or this play set. A lot of kids didn't have them, but the ones that did, they were awesome. They had the friends. Number 2, any friend that had a go-kart. That's all you needed. You need anything with a motor on it. You had a little dirt bike, but if you had a go-kart, that was it. You had friends. You had friends until that go-kart got old news anyway. My friend Boyd, who I've talked about a couple times, he had a go-kart, and it just wasn't as cool because mom wouldn't let him leave his backyard, and his backyard wasn't that big, so we just ended up doing circles. But it was a lot of fun at the time. I ain't gonna lie. I say now it wasn't fun, but we'd ride that thing for hours just in a circle, doing a big circle in the yard. It was awesome. Anytime anyone had a go-kart, everybody in the neighborhood wanted to hang out and see what was going on. Had another friend, well, my sister and my brother had a friend that had a go-kart. I was a little younger. First time I ever seen a go-kart. I was like, this is awesome. And something was wrong with his go-kart where he needed a little push to get it going, but once you push it, it would take on off. And I said, I'll help you. So I just put my hand here and here to push real hard, and I put it on the muffler. I didn't even know what a muffler was, and it burnt the hell out of my hand. I had little circles and everything on it for all summer, and it hurt like hell. I can remember that. Kind of liked it because it reminded me of the guy in Raiders of the Lost Ark that touched the staff of raw metal piece, and so I would walk around and go, hey, get off. I didn't even know what I was doing because I just saw it in Raiders, but it was cool to have a little mark right there. And number 1, this one's more teenager related. It really helps if you're in a basement. But if you had it in your bedroom, doesn't count if you had it in the living room. Had to have it in your room or a basement somewhere to hang out. And that was a good stereo system. And by good stereo system, I don't mean a boombox. I don't mean a portable tape player. I mean, you had to have the big tower one that had a turntable on top of it, cassette player, usually 2 cassette players if it was the late 80s. That way you could do some high speed dubbing, that is. But it had to have those, and it had those big tower speakers. It had to have those because you could rock out some music. If you want to play your Def Leppard, just put it on right there. If you want to play your Poison, your Guns N' Roses, your Faster Pussycat, you can do them all right there. You were cool. Everybody wanted to come over, even if you weren't into the kind of loud head-banging music. It didn't matter. You put it on, and just hang out with your friends at the house, lay back, let that music pump. Hell, you might be rocking some Beastie Boys through those speakers. Or you might be rocking some Ronnie Millsap. I don't care. Whatever it was, whatever you were into, you were awesome. Your friends would come over and just let the music play. And that's back in the good days. We have flip a record over or a cassette tape over. Kids today and they're, every song they want at their fingertips. It's crazy. Anyway, that's a look at 10 things that meant you were the cool kid in the neighborhood. If you had any of those, I bet you kids came over your house to hang out with you. If you didn't, I bet you went to somebody's house that did. Let me know in the comments which one were you. Thanks for watching. We'll talk again soon.
Hey, Junkman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.